Hello, I have prepared this presentation at first with parent communities in mind who are interested in Montessori but not exactly sure what they're getting into. And I've expanded it a little bit with teachers in mind who are also coming to Montessori and still trying to figure out some of the basic principles and how to apply them and why it's important and where to go. So this presentation is called Why Montessori? Nurturing the potential in every child, because one of the principles is that every child has potential and it can be unique to each one, but we can tap into it with the right type of education. So this first section is about the nature of the child, just a few quick points about what we believe about children, what we believe to be true. So the first principle is that children are born to learn. So curiosity is normal. They're born ready to learn and better themselves, and they're interested in knowing things. They don't want to be in the dark. They want to be experts. They want to be good at things. And so they are naturally hardworking. And it's possible that as you meet older children, you might think that they aren't interested in learning, and a lot of times that has more to do with their experience with what education is like than their actual intrinsic desire. So we basically are connecting to the idea and the truth that children are born to learn, and we can keep them excited and motivated to learn if we treat them in ways that are developmentally appropriate. So I have a video here to share with you. And I will make it bigger. And this is a child who's cooking, and she's super tiny. She's probably less than 2, maybe 2. And she's doing all of this big work on her own and cleaning up and helping with baking, of course, getting some assistance. But you can see that she has this desire to do this big work and this big contribution to the household, and I wanted to show this to make that point that children are capable of so much as long as we give them the opportunity. So, next. So, another principle of Montessori is that because children are motivated to learn right from the beginning, we need to focus on that time, and especially the beginning of life, the first 6 years are fundamental for creating not creating a love of learning, but keeping the love of learning alive within the child, because the love of learning is there. We just need to protect it. Our job is to protect it and to capitalize on it and use it for their advantage. So sometimes, at least in the United States, where I am recording this and living and grew up, the public school system doesn't really start until about age 5 or 6, and so children aren't guaranteed any kind of education until then. And of course, they're learning at home. Children are always learning, whether or not we are teaching them, but what they're learning and what they're exposed to is important. And so if we wait and hold off information until they're in school, then we can be denying them a lot of the ability to meet their potential. So the sensitive periods, according to Montessori, they aren't set in stone, but they are really helpful to think about, is that children from birth to age 4 are really refining their movements, their fine motor and gross motor skills, and so that preparation, especially for writing, which if you wait till age 5 or 6 to start writing or preparing them to write, it can be really daunting and difficult. If you've ever tried to write with your non-dominant hand, you might have one you prefer and one you don't use. If you take a moment and write with your other hand, you can reconnect to what it feels like to be a child learning to write and regain some of your empathy, because it's frustrating a little bit. It doesn't feel comfortable. It's unnatural. And if you had to write pages and pages with your non-dominant hand, you might think that it wasn't very fun. So the idea is that there's tons of little muscles in your hands, and really to master and be in control of your body, you should start that work early. You should be given opportunities to refine your motor skills. You should be exposed to as much language as possible in those first 6 years, and a big part of Montessori is to give as much vocabulary and name as many real things as you possibly can for children, not to withhold the big names of things, not to wait until later to describe things as they are, but to give them as much reality as they're willing to listen to, because they're pretty interested early on. So refining their senses, their smell, their taste, all of the things that they use to explore the world, we're really focusing on in the Montessori classrooms. We're listening to things and comparing them, listening carefully, smelling carefully, tasting carefully, just paying attention, naming those senses. What is loud, what is quiet, what is salty, what is sweet, giving them vocabulary to describe and understand what they're sensing and experiencing in the world. And the interactions with small objects and social interaction as well, we'll talk about a little bit more, but they're basically, different elements that we might put off. We might say they're not ready for it, or not focus on certain things and responsibility and interactions and using small things, but they actually have this great capacity early on that we need to work with. So the last thing about sort of the nature of the child that I'm going to talk about is the planes of development in Montessori. There are four planes, and so the first one is this birth to 6 that we've been talking about, because for the Montessori school, we're going to have an infant classroom, toddler classroom, a 3 to 6 or 3 to 5 classroom, and that all happens in this first bit, and it's so important because they're getting independent in so many ways. They're getting in control of their bodies, their emotions to some extent, their early feelings of emotions, and learning how to feed themselves and go to the bathroom and put on their own clothes, and gaining the sense of independence that's going to carry them through in other ways as they continue through school. Then in elementary, what they're going to get into more is sort of a mental independence, figuring out rules, figuring out expectations, figuring out how to categorize the world around them. And so that will be a big part of our elementary curriculum, is helping classify and organize information. And then from 12 to 18, they're focused a lot on their social life, as you have probably noticed if you have been around, or if you've been a teenager yourself. And that also starts to show up in elementary, but as far as becoming more independent with their social lives, that's more of an adolescent thing, and as we develop the program outward to older children, we can talk more about that. And then early adulthood is sort of where we find our purpose in life and maturity in our moral compass, and just develop and fine-tune what do I want to do with what I care about and find my place in the world. So this is just a framework for looking at what stages of life that Maria Montessori would refer to and talk about. And we talk about characteristics of each of these planes of development. What are the characteristics of the child at that time? And I'll have other presentations about that later on, especially for the age groups that you have in elementary, which I'm most familiar with because that's who I worked with the most. So what Montessori offers is multiple things, but independence and confidence. So Maria Montessori said that the children, are asking us basically to, help me to do it for myself. Not help me by doing it for me, but help me learn how to do it myself and be in charge of my own body. So in that, in Montessori, as educators and as parents, we have to refrain from doing everything for them that they might be able to do for themselves. So I have a child learning to peel and chop carrots here, and then I also have a little kid of this little boy cooking over a fire. teeny tiny, and no one is standing over them trying to get them to not break the eggs in the kitchen. And we would be doing that here. They're placing trust in the children to basically do this thing that is, in a lot of societies, considered adult work or something to protect children from instead of to be involved. So I'll just watch a little more. This is the last video clip in the presentation. But the idea here is that in a Montessori environment, children are learning to become independent, like this little person, and they develop confidence in themselves, and that will carry them through to be able to push and work harder, love learning more, and be fulfilled adults. And it all starts with giving them the opportunities and trusting them. They also, in a Montessori classroom, experience community. So I have a picture of them in a circle. We would do that here in my classroom. This is my former classroom. And we would talk about things and issues that came up, and we would do lessons in a group and discuss and hear from each other. And the idea is to model a real community. So we have older people working with younger people and, mixed ages, so that it feels like the real world. Because I know that in my jobs that I've worked, I don't work with only people that are the exact same age as me, but different ages, and they can still be my peers, even if they are older or younger. And I can learn from older people. I can help younger people, and so it is in the Montessori classroom. So there's mixed ages, there are group meetings, and conflict resolution, and we treat the children with the same respect that we would want them to treat each other and us. Another thing that Montessori offers is preparation for real life. So here I have pictured a child learning to sweep. I really love the square. We did that in my classroom too, to help them understand where to sweep and so no one else steps on it. That was a big something we decided to do in a community meeting, like the one pictured. And it's also a practical life skill and something that often adults take over, at least in my experience in the cultures that I've lived. And so practical life skills and preparation of food, cleaning a space, these are skills that everyone needs, unless you get rich and have someone do it all for you. But generally, even in that case, we still want to learn to take care of our own things. I don't know anyone in that boat. So anyway, emotional regulation is another thing that is a skill that we all need in life. And so a lot of times in traditional settings, emotions can be glossed over, and we can, see that a child is upset but just have to go on. The show must go on. I have to keep teaching to the whole class. I can't just stop and deal with this that's happening. And in a Montessori classroom, we have more room to address, the children can work independently while I, the teacher, or another adult can help a child understand their own emotions and what they're going through and what their needs are and meet their need. A lot of times little children will melt down just because they need a snack, or they're a bit tired, or they're feeling a bit frustrated. They need a break. They need to take some deep breaths, or their friend did something that annoyed them, and they need the tools to understand, how do I deal with this emotion? This uncomfortable emotion is going to come up in everyone. Sometimes, what can I do to empower myself to get through it and continue to work instead of shutting down and not listening to any more lessons the rest of the day? So we have a little girl here, and what we generally have in most classrooms, like a little peace corner or relaxation corner where they can read or maybe do something to calm themselves, some other tools. I've had like maybe Zen gardens and just cards to look at and glitter in a bottle, just anything that could be sort of a way to calm down. So it's important for real life, and so it's important in our schools too. So, the next section I want to cover is a few myths, not every myth because there's lots of them, but a few that seem relevant at this time. So the first myth is that the more that you learn, the better. The more that you're exposed to. If I tell a child 100 things in a day, that's better for them than me only telling them 2 things in a day. And that's just simply not true. The more that a child can focus deeply on something and learn it when they are ready, the more that they're actually going to understand. And so probably you've had this experience, I've had this experience where someone told me something and I wasn't ready to hear it, or I didn't absorb it. And then later I had an experience that helped me think, oh, wow, my dad tried to tell me that, or that person told me that information, but I just didn't understand what they meant yet. But now I do, because now my brain is ready. I've had the experience that I need to have to absorb that new thing. And so we have to understand that children, as much as we want to treat it like a factory system and teach them all the same things at the same time, and, oh, I already told you that, it's just not how brains work. And it's not how people work, and it's not respectful to think that it is or act like it is. So bombarding children with more and more information and testing them on it and then letting them forget it immediately is not leading to real learning. We're learning to memorize and we're learning to forget, and we're not really getting true meaning in our education system right now. And so the idea that more is better and 7 subjects a day, and I had 10 lessons today is better than I had 2 lessons today is simply misinformed and outdated. And everyone, we've all tried it, right? Because we want to be efficient and we want to do our best for the children, and we want, it comes from some places of genuine care, and yet it's just simply not how human bodies work. So in Montessori, we give children space to dive deep into subjects, and so here you can see these children are working and independently and following up on lessons, and they can work with those materials as long as they want to. No one else should demand that they take it, like that they put it away. No one should take it from them. Another child can use it when they are all done, or they can ask to work with them or observe them. But unless it's the end of the school day and you really have to clean up because you have to clean up the whole thing, I mean, even in a lot of cases, we would leave work out overnight, especially if it's a big work. It's just that sometimes you have to clean up. So on the weekends, we might put our work away, but we might leave it out on a Monday night to finish on a Tuesday, Wednesday, especially this bottom work, which is a very big work in elementary. So more is not better, necessarily. The second myth I want to address is that play isn't important. We have more research now, and now we know that play facilitates learning. It helps us learn. It helps us learn social skills because we're interacting with our friends, and we're having to negotiate, we're having to delegate, we're having to make decisions together and collaborate. We're having to practice conflict resolution, and all of that is built into play. And I often joke that elementary children in particular fight about the rules more than they play the game. And it's just actually part of their learning. It's representative of what they need at that stage. They need to figure out how to navigate complex social situations, and so it is part of their work. And it's more important for them to argue about it than to play sometimes. And to figure out the strategies to calm down, to be respectful to the other person, and to navigate when people don't want the same thing, because they don't always. So social skills, of course, motor skills like we talked about, running around, jumping, climbing, mastering your physical body and its potential is much easier when you're smaller than older. If you've ever worked at a desk or sat a lot or just realized in your older age that you could not do something that you could do when you were younger, it's much easier to keep a skill than to try to get it later. And so it also helps with your mental health and well-being. It also helps your brain learn. So running around and jumping and climbing are not just frivolous things to do in your extra time. They are important. This child with the garden was there to represent and help me remember to talk about how interacting with nature and being hands-on is going to help you learn more things. So when we're trying to teach children the parts of the plant or how a plant grows or what a plant needs, if they haven't touched dirt and, planted something, then it's all abstract, it's all in a book, it's all adults saying this, blah, 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 it's important. And yet, how can they really know if they have never experienced a plant growing and watching it? How can they understand the awe of being in nature if they've been stuck in a classroom, not able to go outside. So especially nowadays, it's really important for us to understand that we need the earth more than it needs us, and all the things are interconnected. And it can be, I think, easy for human beings to become alienated from the natural world, especially when they're not in it. And then I've already mentioned that this is all beneficial for mental health, but being isolated and listening to adults talk all day is not what's healthy for children, and it's not going to help them learn, and their minds will wander. But if they have freedom and they're invited to learn in a fun way, then they want to learn. And the third myth I want to talk about, the last one, is that rest isn't important. And rest, like play, helps us learn. It helps consolidate and solidify the learning that we've done during the day. Our brains are still working while we're asleep, and even when we are at rest. So I have some Peace Corner pictures here and some a nap time picture, because sometimes, not only is sleep important, but even just being able to relax between work, to do some work and have the freedom to go and take a little brief walk, go and sit and look at something and just take deep breaths, even stare out the window. I know that in some schools we would want to, and we would feel like if a child is just sitting and staring, we might feel like, I have to go and stop them. They're not working. They're not doing anything. But really, it's healthy and it's normal and it's appropriate. You don't know what's going on. You can't read their mind. They may be thinking about the work, and it's not our job as adults to control what's in their mind at every single moment. And that control breeds resentment, and it doesn't breed healthy relationships that help learning. Okay, so the evidence. Moving on to the evidence. What does the research tell us? I am looking... I have a quote from Angeline Lillard, first of all. She's a psychology professor at the University of Virginia in the United States. And it was at the time the 22nd school in education in the country, and where I got my master's, and I met her, and she told me about training. So anyway, she has an excellent book called The Science Behind the Genius that has a lot of research that I would like to continue to go over in another presentation. But it's about the principles of Montessori and how Maria Montessori said that all these things were true based on her observations of real children and working with lots and lots of children. And yet science continues to prove that she was right. And meanwhile, the education system went in a different direction with different principles. But Maria Montessori knew what was good for children, and the evidence is only getting stronger and stronger every day. So the quote from her is that Montessori children show significantly greater social understanding and academic achievement. So not just interpersonal, but also academic skills are stronger from Montessori children overall. There are some other studies, there were many more than this, but I just have a brief overview that people found that Montessori students scored higher on standardized tests of reading and math, which isn't what we're working on specifically. We're not focused on testing, and yet they still did better. That deeper learning had that impact. So we can have faith in what we're doing and the way that we're doing it, even though it's different and a little scary sometimes. So by the age of 12, the same children that they observed earlier on, they were more creative in their writing, and they showed a deeper understanding of complex social issues. So it's not just reading and math, but also other skills that apply to everything, every aspect of life. Unless you want someone to just do what a computer can do, but generally we don't. We want people to do what people do best, which is think in complex systems, use creativity to solve problems, and interact socially as well. So they also had superior self-discipline, self-control, attention regulation, and impulse control. Woo! I'm going to stand up. The light goes off after a certain point. So anyway, they have more ability to control themselves, which is interesting because you might think, or you might be afraid at some point, especially as an educator, I'm giving these children too much freedom. They need to be in control. That's, normal because of what we experienced and how I was educated, and you were probably educated to be controlled and to think that the adult has to be in control or else everything is chaos and bad. But actually, the child will learn to do what they need to do. They will learn to control themselves and pay attention when they need to, given the right tools and respect and training and coaching. You can almost think of yourself as like a manager rather than, not someone who has to control, but someone who's guiding and leading and modeling. So they're also happier in school and more creative with their career choices as well. So anyway, I could go on and on about the research. There's a lot more. I'll come back to it, especially if you express interest, but probably the next subject we're going to touch on is discipline styles, because I think that's probably the most relevant to the teachers. So let's go on to the next part of this. Discipline versus punishment. I'm going to give you a little bit of this, and then, like I said, I would like to go more into depth in another presentation using several different texts as guidelines. But overall, the difference between punishment and discipline is multifaceted, and I'll just go point by point here. This one says, this chart says punishment is based on rewards and penalties. So, anything, taking something away, timeouts, a spanking or a slap on the wrist, punishment when they do something bad, and a reward, maybe a sticker or a candy if they do something good. Whereas discipline is more relationship-based. If the child respects you, they want to make you happy. That's just innate in children until you sort of make it otherwise, you have to earn it a little bit. But once a child likes you, they pretty much want you to be happy. They don't want to disappoint you. And you can sort of leverage your relationship to help just guide them to the right choices. If they know that you're supporting them and you care about them, then they are more likely to do what you need them to do. So punishment focuses on behavior. What did they do? And discipline focuses on character. What can you learn from what you did? And what do you want to do next time? And what was your intention? You hurt someone's feelings, or you hurt someone. What were you thinking when that happened? Like, how did you get here? And how can we address that? Punishment is focused on control, and discipline is focused on connecting. So we want to connect with the students. We don't need to control every single thing they do, even though we want to guide what they do for sure, and we want to keep them safe and we want them to learn. But we don't have to be as in control as we have learned to think we need to be. Punishment uses fear to intimidate children, which shuts their brains down and then they cannot learn. Discipline uses love to motivate. When we care about them, they see that and they want to do what's right. Punishment teaches what to do, the rules, and discipline is teaching why. It's never, I know this was a big pet peeve for me when I grew up, that when my mom said, because I said so, or a teacher said,